Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, Matchday 25 review here on a Monday night. We are live on YouTube, brought to you by Over the Bar, and it's the first ever show of us both broadcasting from the British Isles.
It
So,
is.
Mark, you're over in your hometown. What does it feel like?
Yeah, it's an incredible feeling. Like when I first arrived on Friday, I felt like I was like a foreigner, literally, here. Yeah, it was really kind of weird. I don't know, to hear English like being spoken everywhere. But yeah, I think Saturday I got to a football game, a local football game, Salford v Forest Green, actually. Yeah, so Johnny B, if you're watching, yeah, I was pretty impressed with your team on Saturday. Yeah, met up with a few mates to see that game. So yeah, that kind of got me back in the swing of things and caught up with a few friends. And yeah, it's been really nice to be back and everything. So yeah,
Lovely stuff. So, obviously, it's nice to have obviously you, Mark, in just over the Pennines, really, from me.
yeah, yeah.
So not distance too far on this occasion, but of course we do have Bundesliga football to turn our attentions to. Of course, this video and this Monday night show is in partnership with our good friends Bundesliga Boxes. Brilliant company that we share a partnership with. So make sure that you get yourselves over to their website to go check out their latest release of shirts as they produce mystery and authentic German football t-shirts. Obviously, you have no idea what you're going to get. You could end up with a kind of mainstream Bundesliga team, or you could end up with a regional Liga side or anything like that. So obviously go check them out, and please like, comment and subscribe to the channel. Comment along. If you're watching on Twitter, just pop over to YouTube and join us for a bit of a chat. We always prioritize questions that come in over anything that we're doing anyway. We always like to get people involved, so again, even if you don't feel like you know much about the Bundesliga, just shout up and we will answer your questions or join in a bit of a debate. So over to you, Mark. So let's go through the scores and then get into the featured four.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, starting off on the Friday evening, yeah, we had a pretty shock 1-0 win for Augsburg in that battle of the bottom away in Bielefeld, a massive 3 points for them. Moving on to Saturday, yeah, the kind of battle of the first versus third teams ended in a 1-1 draw. Probably Leverkusen will be the happier of the two teams, which we'll mention a bit more later. Leipzig with a last-minute equaliser at home to Freiburg, denying Freiburg what would have been a famous win, really, but still decent point for Freiburg there, keeps them in the top four race. Wolfsburg with, a kind of flashback to last season kind of win, really, wasn't it? With a 1-0 win, looking very steady against Union Berlin. Hertha Berlin continuing their absolutely abject run of form, especially at home, with another battering, this time at home against Frankfurt 4-1. Bochum with another, continuing their impressive home form, now mid-table Bochum, really, let's be honest, with a 2-1 win over very likely to be relegated Greuther Fürth. Then, yeah, game of the weekend, really, wasn't it? Stuttgart with a 3-2 win over Gladbach, which we'll look in more detail later. Then, yeah, the only game on Sunday was actually, maybe people would have expected more goals in this, but it was a 1-0 win for Hoffenheim in Köln, but a very, very important 1-0 win for Hoffenheim, which actually pushes them up to fourth place in the Bundesliga table now, because obviously the news, I think it actually came in on a Friday, that the game was postponed between Mainz and Dortmund due to COVID outbreak in the Dortmund camp, which is quite ironic, really, because it's the only game that's been postponed for COVID this season. So I think there were rumours that Bayern were a little bit cheesed off with this decision, actually, because obviously they were forced to play a couple of games earlier on in the season with quite heavily weakened teams as a result of a COVID outbreak, whereas Dortmund, suffering their kind of first major outbreak, got their game postponed. So a bit of controversy as well on that front. But yeah, that game will be replayed on Wednesday, the 16th of March. So we don't have too much longer to wait until that game will be played. So yeah, that kind of recaps week 25's results. So yeah, let's swiftly, without further ado, move on to the OTB's featured four, which is obviously where we pick the four best games of the weekend and we count them down from 4 down to number 1. So yeah, let's have a look. Fourth place, Bayern Munich versus Bayer Leverkusen. Yeah, I think most people thought this would be top of the list really this weekend, didn't they? Obviously, a very, very highly built game, wasn't it? I mean, it was a game between, probably what many people consider to be the best two teams in the Bundesliga this season, really. Obviously, last time they met, Bayern basically produced an absolute masterclass to destroy the away side 5-1. In fact, I think they were even 5-0 up at half time in that game, actually, which was, but yeah, obviously much, much improved performance from Leverkusen. And to be honest, having watched the game, many would have said they could have gone away with the 3 points, in all honesty. But obviously, the game actually got off to a really good start for the home side. It was kind of poor defending, really, wasn't it, from Leverkusen? They let the free kick kind of bounce around the box a little bit. I think there was a poked effort, I think, from Müller towards the goal, which was kind of cleared unconvincingly off the line, really. And the ball fell to that man, Niklas Süle, who obviously is going to be leaving the club in the summer to join rivals Borussia Dortmund. He kind of hit like a kind of half volley, I would say, against the ground. It ended up, hit a few bodies, hit the keeper along the way, and ended up kind of being bundled into the back of the net, really. Not the most beautiful goal you're going to see in the Bundesliga, that's for sure, but it was good enough to give Bayern the lead, yeah. Then a little bit of a kind of, not the most entertaining period of play, but then Leverkusen had a free kick on the far side, didn't they, which was really, really well whipped in, I think, by Demir Bey, yeah. Really well whipped in. One of those brilliant balls into the kind of no man's land, as they call it, between the kind of defensive line and the goalkeeper. And incredibly, it was that man, Thomas Müller, obviously a man who's famous for getting goals and assists aplenty in the right end, actually kind of like ended up poking the ball past his own keeper, which was, he was quite apologetic for that one because, he realized it was a very poor mistake. It was a very good ball in from Demir Bay, but it should have been dealt with better. Would you agree with that, Rory, that it should have been dealt with better, that one, or was it just a very good ball, do you think?
Yeah, it was a good ball, but yeah, I think it's just communication breakdown there. Muller's obviously used to having a really loud and confident keeper behind him in the shape of Manuel Neuer, and it's still Sven Ulreich. Looks like Ulreich is ready there to collect the ball, and Muller obviously taps it home into an empty net because Ulreich's already come out for it. So yeah, a mixture of a good ball and a bit of uncertainty, which is quite unusual, obviously, for Bayern.
Yeah, but then obviously before the half was over, I mean, Leverkusen missed an absolute sitter really to go in front. And it was that man, Upamecano, who didn't have the best of games, did he really, in this one? He sold an absolutely horrible back pass, didn't he, to the forward from Adley, I think it was, who went around the keeper, and he has a very, very good angle, let's be honest, and he kind of, it looks in all the way, in all honesty, but it kind of hits the inside of the post and doesn't quite go in, does it? But I mean, that's the kind of chance, you're looking at that for Leverkusen and thinking that's a gimme, really, isn't it? You've got to be scoring that one, yeah. Do you agree, Rory? Was that a terrible miss, or was it just a bit unlucky, do you think?
It was a poor miss, yeah. Not much more to analyze about it. Just, it had a better angle than he probably realized, and he rushed the chance. So maybe a bit more composure and a bit more an experienced player might have put that in.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, obviously got into half time at 1-1. And then Rory, do you want to take us through the rest of the half? The second half, sorry.
Yeah, sure thing. It again, obviously all the goals did come in the first half, but there was still plenty of action and energy going, obviously, between the two teams. I think Musiala tested the Bayer Leverkusen keeper Haradecky into a good save. Florian Wirtz also had an effort at the other end. So he kind of got an effort into the side netting from a cross. But I think the main chance, I guess, of the second half was really substitute, and for me, rarely seen Marcel Sabitzer. Came off the bench, a player that would have really flourished in this Bayern side, but let's face it, even with all the injuries and kind of breaks that Bayern have had, he's not really featured or starred much anyway, and it was his opportunity after being played through. Made a really well-timed run and was picked out 1-on-1 with Haradecky, and he kind of fluffed his lines, really. It was a good strike, but straight at the keeper, so it was parried and well saved, and then unfortunately we couldn't find the winner. But obviously, despite the scoreline being 1-1, it was still a fine ad advertisement for the Bundesliga because it was really end-to-end stuff. Obviously, it could have been well more than 1-1 if you take into account certainly the chance for Amin Adli and obviously for Sabitzer and a few other ones here and there. So, yeah, 1-1, good result for Leverkusen. I kind of thought that they'd be able to do a lot better than they did in the reverse fixture, which obviously they were able to achieve. Obviously, that's even without star striker Patrick Schick. And I think they got their new signing, Asmuna, a debut. He came on in like the last minute, but just obviously he's now back from injury, so they'll start to bring him back into the team. So that obviously is good news for them. So it'd be exciting to see what he can do. Point gain for Leverkusen. Bayern again won't be displeased considering that is probably one of the final hurdles towards I was about to say the Champions League title there, to the Bundesliga title. So yeah, a well-earned point for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say Leverkusen might be the happy, because it would have been, obviously with Dortmund's postponement, I mean, it would have been a great chance as probably the final kind of step towards the title if they had won this game, wouldn't it? But I mean, Leverkusen proof that the, Sione is improving them slowly but surely. It was a much, much improved performance from their home game against Bayern, that's for sure, and as you say, both sides will feel as though they could have won this game, that's for sure. So let's move on to the next game, which is actually, again, this is another one that, most people wouldn't have considered would have made our top four, but it ended up being, quality-wise, probably not the best game, but entertainment-wise, it was high up, I would say. I mean, It was a very kind of, the game between the two sides who did get promoted to the Bundesliga last season, of course. The first meeting between these sides was, both sides were in dire straits at that time. I remember Bochum came into the match on like a 5-match losing run, and they managed to get like a scrappy 1-0 win at Fürth. But obviously this time, Bochum coming into the game in a very, very different place, and they knew that a win, they had 29 points coming into this game, and a win would more or less guarantee them safety, because they usually say 34, 35 points is all you need to stay into the Bundesliga, and now they're up to 32 with this win. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would say first half was a little bit scrappy in most cases. I think Fürth did have a couple of decent shots through that man, Leveling, who has been really impressive recently, and I can see him getting a good move to stay in the Bundesliga if the likelihood happens and Fürth do get relegated come May. He had a good game. Hertha, who's also been pretty good, was causing a few problems down the flanks. But it was Bochum who kind of went ahead with the first kind of big chance, really, I would say. It was a free kick from the left side, actually, and it was a right-footed free kick from Petre. Kind of hit like a mixture of the keeper saved it and it hit the post, but pretty fortunately, really, for Bochum, let's be honest. The ball just kind of fell almost on the line, but just too far away from goalkeeper Linde, and it was there for that man Leach to just tap home, basically. I think for his first goal of the season, it was the easiest goal he's ever going to score in his career, but it was obviously a massive goal in this kind of game to get the opening goal. Yeah, the rest of the first half, not really much happened, but obviously Bochum went in front. And then, Rory, what happened in the second half?
Yeah, well, similar sort of trend, to be honest. Bochum were, in control, pressing for that second goal. I think that the man you've already mentioned, Petre, did have a few good opportunities up until around the hour mark. Basically, they weren't able to make that game safe. So Fürth obviously were growing in confidence as a result, and then got a bit of a lucky break. It was a nice cross in from Tillman, which managed to get all the way over to Hargurta, and his first time volley back towards goal ended up deflecting off Bela Kotchup, who I think scored a few own goals this season, actually. Yeah. Bless him, because he's one player that I actually quite highly rate, and he is a young player, of course. But deflected beyond Ryman in net, and that's 1-1. On around 64, 65 minutes. So you then, obviously, as the home crowd, you might be thinking you're getting a bit nervous. Obviously, this victory might be taken away from them because it, generally speaking, it had been all Bochum and they, deserved to have their lead, but they only had to wait another 7 minutes to retake the lead. Another bit of a messy goal. It was actually captain Lucia, who picked up a ball inside the area from a bit of a scramble again, poked it home. Obviously inside the area, did take a deflection off substitute Abiyama, but it was going on target, so the goal obviously stood with the captain of Bochum to make it 2-1, and they fairly comfortably saw it out from there. Obviously the win, so yeah, huge win for Bochum. They'll be absolutely thrilled with that, given that that more or less secures their status as a Bundesliga team for a second season. Sat in 11th place, 9 wins. Really impressive kind of effort so far. Not really conceded many goals at all, like we said. We thought they'd kind of mirror the efforts of Arminia Bielefeld from last season. And if you look at the table, it's very interesting because Bochum have only conceded 2 more goals than Bielefeld. That obviously are significantly higher in the table, but it kind of mirrors that kind of image that they wanted to stay in games as long as possible and make sure they didn't concede lots, like Fürth have done, and it seems to have paid off. So yeah, really good win for Bochum, and they look like they've secured another season. Fürth look like they're unfortunately struggling, but they're still 6 unbeaten at home since the turn of the year or something like that. So yeah, their form has been improved. Their away form has been abysmal, but that's always going to be tricky when they're going away from home without any support and into these kind of cauldrons and these atmospheres that they've probably not experienced before. So a learning curve for Fürth of a season. Hopefully, if they do go down, they can bounce back up nice and quickly.
Yeah, I mean, talking a little bit more about Bochum's home form, I was interested to see just how well they are doing. And just a quick look at the home table shows they're actually in 6th place through 13 games at home, which is just ridiculously impressive. For a newly promoted side, we all know how much usually newly promoted sides struggle in the Bundesliga, because there is a very big difference between the Zweite and the top tier of the Bundesliga. But I mean, 6th place with 7 wins from 13 games. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. Only 3 defeats in those 13 matches at home, And I think one of them was a very late defeat last week against Leipzig, wasn't it? So, I mean, they were a little bit unlucky to lose that one. They've just been absolutely brilliant at home, and they could get even better because obviously the fans are back in the ground in Nord Rhine-Westphalia, the kind of area where they have the likes of Dortmund, Leverkusen. I think full capacities are allowed again nowadays. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in my beloved Bavaria, it's still 50% capacity, which is probably why you notice that Bayern and Augsburg and Fürth still don't have full stadiums at the moment. Mm-hmm. But it was great to see a few full grounds. I think in Bochum, Stuttgart had a very, very good crowd on as well on Saturday evening. Does seem as though we're slowly getting towards full stadiums again, and that's only going to help the likes of Bochum, I think, because they have a very solid home crowd. They fill the ground when they're allowed to every week. It's a great thing for them, and they're going to be playing Bundesliga again next season. That's pretty much certain. So we'll just have to see how they can kind of develop, because been a fantastic season for them, without doubt. As for Fürth, this probably for me was the kind of last chance saloon for them, really. And I think they are going to be plying the trade as a Zweite Bundesliga team again next season, despite a good effort in the last probably 10, 12 games, really, I would say, overall. Okay, so yeah, let's move on to... we've got to go to our Bundesliga term of the week. So over to Rory.
Yeah, we do, indeed. Yeah, just to break up a bit of match analysis and stuff, just to have a bit more of a laugh. So yeah, Bundesliga Glossary A to Z time. So yeah, we're just running our way through the alphabet A to Z of some Bundesliga terminology and kind of words that are used in association with the league, things that you can maybe pick up and use around your friends when we're talking, when you're talking Bundesliga football, hopefully. So this week we're on to letter F, and this one quite, scared me when you see it on paper. So let's get up now. So yeah, that's our word, F. Its definition is yo-yo team. So I believe the pronunciation goes along the lines of Fahrstuhlmannschaft. So Mark, obviously, the thing we know that Mannschaft is a direct definition of team. So do you want to just run us through a bit more of the translation of that, if you can do?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is the kind of word that, for a lot of people that don't know anything about German looks really quite scary, really, on paper, I think, yeah. But I think, Rory, I'd give you an 8 out of 10 for your pronunciation on that one. Yeah. Fahrstuhlmannschaft. Yeah, it literally means it's correct that the translation is yo-yo team, but that's not actually the word yo-yo isn't Fahrstuhl. It's actually an elevator or a lift.
Yeah.
The word Fahrstuhl means so like the German expression for this is like an elevator team, which kind of logically makes sense because, an elevator goes up and down, and it's a team that kind of goes up and down through the divisions, So my beloved Nuremberg for a long time were considered to be a Fahrstuhlmannschaft, actually. But unfortunately for the last 4 years or so, they've been kind of in the wilderness of this Zweite Bundesliga, unfortunately. So let's hope they can go back to being a Fahrstuhlmannschaft within the next few years. That's the hope anyway, But yeah, absolutely. Another good word. In the glossary, you can use that with your friends or to any German people that you meet, or if you go across to the Bundesland, as they call it, and you can use your knowledge of the German language. So yeah. Let's continue on with our coverage then. So obviously the last 2 games of the weekend were the big high scoring games, both 5 goals in these games. But obviously if you're a Hertha Berlin fan, we're probably losing Hertha watchers by the week, aren't we, at the minute? Because it just seems like every single week we're talking about a battering for Hertha Berlin, I remember it wasn't long since maybe the beginning of December when we had the Hertha fan on from the USA, actually. And we were talking about how things were looking so positive for Hertha Berlin at that time. Korkut had made a really, really good start to his time in charge. The team were playing well. They beat Dortmund in the last game before the Christmas break, but what's gone on since Christmas has just been a car crash, hasn't it? Literally, it's now 1 point from 8 games since the break, which is just abject. I don't have any other words to say. And most of the games have been batterings as well, let's be honest. And this was another battering against a Frankfurt side who found form after a pretty poor run themselves as well. Yeah, obviously the main team news was that Lodka started again in net for Hertha. I think is actually like the 4th choice keeper or something. Yeah, it's certainly not. Yeah, it's been that kind of season for Hertha, certainly since the break. Obviously, Mark-Oliver Kempf started after his suspension as well, but it didn't make much improvement. And I think obviously up front, Dong John Lee actually started ahead of Belfodil as well. Belfodil, I've always liked him, but let's be honest, he's not done very well the last 4 or 5 games. He was bench for this game. Yeah, I mean, as for the game, the Hertha fans were not particularly confident coming into this one. And after just 17 minutes, they already found themselves behind. It was one of those brilliant crosses from Kostic, a classic cross. This time a more flighty cross. He often puts in the drilled cross low, but this was had a bit more height, aiming for the head of Ansgar Knauf, who's actually kind of like a new man in the team. Obviously started the game as a fullback on the other side of Kostic, incredibly. Yeah, he got a really, really good header, which kind of looped up and above Lodka. Not much he could do, really, into the back of the net. So once again, 17 minutes on the clock and they're already behind. Yeah, I mean, obviously Hertha did kind of harry a little bit. Richter was looking quite dangerous. Toussaint back in the team, for this game. Was also a little bit industrious in the midfield, but ultimately they went in at the 1-0 down at the break, and then Rory just got worse and worse, didn't it?
Yeah, that man that you mentioned, the goal scorer, Ansgar Knauf, a loanee signing, obviously from Borussia Dortmund, plying his trade there for a little while, and obviously looking for a few more, 13 minutes in the Bundesliga here with Frankfurt, and his good work led to a nice cross, which was headed back in by Ndicka to his centre-back partner, Tuta, to just tap home. Basically, that was for 2-0. And then soon after, unfortunately, the 4th choice goalkeeper, Lotka, probably showed why he isn't playing first team football right now. He came out for a clearance, didn't make proper contact, and Jesper Lindstrom made a fine effort, chipping it over the keeper, rushing back into his net from about 30 yards, curling it in over his head to make it 3-0. Unfortunately, and that was game over, wasn't it, really? Davy Selke came on and showed why everyone perhaps rates him higher than me and Mark do, because he came on and struck a really clean volley after a pretty average headed clearance by Frankfurt. Straight in, really nice contacts on that actually. So fair play to Selke. Gave Hertha a bit of hope, but that hope lasted around about 2 minutes as soon after Kamada was given the freedom of Berlin, basically running at the Hertha defence, loads of time and space to pick out Rafa Borre, who looks a lot more clinical now and a lot more calm and comfortable in a Frankfurt shirt. He cut inside the desperately defending Boyata to make it 4-1 at the near post and confirm what would be another fine, hammering for Hertha and a fine win for Frankfurt, exactly what they needed. Obviously, as they've been dropping a little bit and have been, in parts quite impressed with Frankfurt. They looked in trouble early on in the season, didn't they? And then had a really good run, getting themselves in the mix again for Europe and everything else like that. Then they've dropped off again recently, so this was a perfect game to get themselves restarted, scoring goals, getting confidence back into the players. Kostic getting assists, Kamada getting assists, and obviously Rafa Borre getting an important goal for his confidence. So, yeah, all positives to take from this game for Frankfurt. For Hertha, without massively giving away our talking point, if you've not already seen it on Twitter, we'll probably be talking a little bit more about them in a few minutes anyway. So I'll not go too much in depth into them. Just a bit clueless, a bit helpless. But yeah, I'll hold my tongue and just say, well done to Frankfurt, because with their form coming into it, you could have said it was quite a 50-50 matchup. But yeah, a really important win for them to help them maybe kickstart the rest of their campaign with obviously eight or so games to go. But yeah, very entertaining watching for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, you could see the happiness on Oliver Glasner's face at the end as well. He's been under a little bit of pressure recently, hasn't he? Because big things were expected from this Frankfurt side. I wouldn't say they've had a terrible season by any means. I think at times they've looked really good, actually, especially, in this game was no different. They were way, way better than an admittedly poor Hertha side. They've got good players. They've had good players, good performances this season, throughout the season. Christian Jakic was good in midfield. Sau has also been solid, and I think it's good to see Martin Hinteregger as well. Is definitely coming back into some of the form that we saw last season after a disappointing first half of the season. They got goals all over the pitch. Tuta gets goals and Dicker sometimes gets goals. There's definitely something to play for. If they can put another run together like they did at the back end of last season, the first half of the season, when they put together 6 wins in 7, they could still qualify for Europe. Yeah. Because you've got to remember that 7th place, although that does also depend on the cup as well. So I think if a team doesn't finish, if, for example, Union win the cup, but they finish 10th in the league, they take that Conference League place. I'm not entirely sure how that works, but it could be related to the Europa League as well. But definitely the cup this year could have an influence, because obviously it's going to be a team that are not guaranteed to play in the Champions League this year, so that could definitely impact. But yeah, no reason why Hertha can't finish Frankfurt can't finish in the top half. Good performance. You just need to back it up and work on the home form a little bit more for them, I think. Okay, so yeah, moving on to the game of the weekend, and this is one that's going to bring a smile to Rory's face, that's for sure. What a game this was. Classic Bundesliga, full house in Stuttgart this weekend, brilliant atmosphere, the fans, the ultras behind them. It's great to see, actually, that despite the season that they've had, obviously, Pellegrino Matarazzo has been under a bit of pressure, but the fans still seem to be behind him from what I can see. Certainly the match-going fans, you're always going to get some of the fans online who are kind of, a little bit cheesed off with proceedings, but definitely the match-going fans can understand they've had a bit of bad luck this season with injuries and maybe certain decisions haven't gone their way in games, but yeah, this is the start of the comeback, I think, but what a strange game it was. The first half just looked like all Gladbach at first, didn't it? And they actually scored a really, really good opening goal, actually, yeah. It was good play between Player and Neuhaus. Brilliant assist as well from Neuhaus. Yeah. Beautiful pass with the outside of his foot, kind of chipping it over the defence. player, probably not the best finish. He's not always the best finisher at times, is he? But obviously goalkeeper Florian Müller, who for me hasn't covered himself in glory this season at all for Stuttgart, obviously replacing Kobel, who joined Dortmund. He made a bit of a poor effort, in my opinion, at saving it, and the ball did kind of find the back of the net for 1-0 after 14 minutes. Then it was that man Player. I think he was actually one of Runer's tips as well. Yeah, so he obviously had a really, really good game for the fantasy football players out there. He turned provider this time for Marcus Thuram, who's obviously having a bit of a resurgence in form, isn't he, at the minute? Obviously he got on the end of a nice cross from Player for 2-0. So you're thinking, it's going to be another long afternoon, isn't it, for the home side? But yeah, they actually got themselves right back in it just a few minutes after that second goal with kind of like a cross coming in. The keeper kind of got mixed up a little bit, didn't he? Sommer probably could have done a little bit better. It ends up falling nicely for that man, Wataru Endo, for his second goal in 2 games, so he's also coming back into form. Bit of a scrappy goal, really, which will frustrate Adi Hütter in obviously the Gladbach manager, but that was ultimately what kind of gave the passage for a very good second half from Stuttgart, Rory.
Yeah, that I did. And I wasn't able to watch the game live, but I've seen quite a lot of extensive highlights of the game, and even the first half, to be frankly honest. Like the Gladbach, Stuttgart started well, but ultimately Gladbach's quality came through. Like you said, the really good interchange between Player and Neuhaus. Neuhaus has got that quality, hasn't he, to unlock defences. And the second goal, again, Players come into a bit of form out of nowhere, really, and his assists have been very impressive as well. And yeah, the bit of luck at the end of the half where Endo, I think it's Ben Sabini, fluffs his clearance and it ends up with Endo, and that's the bit of luck that ultimately Stuttgart needed. Into the second half, they got exactly what they needed and they got level really early on. It was some good play down the right-hand side, which it was basically a cutback that was blocked. It ended up falling to the feet of Sasa Kalajdzic. His effort was then also deflected off Ben Sabini again, and it fell to the kind of lurking at the back post, Chris Furyk, who's kind of did a diving header, and it wasn't actually the best diving header because he did put it quite central, but Sommer was so far over at the other end of the goal that he wasn't able to get across quickly enough. So obviously that makes it 2-2 after like 51 minutes, I think, roughly. And then, the game just became an open end-to-end kind of scrap for the 3 points. I think Florian Müller, as you say, Mark, hasn't. Yeah, I agree. I don't think he's covered himself in glory in quite a lot of games. Obviously, he's probably faced a lot of shots and been quite busy as a keeper this season. But yeah, I think certainly for the first goal, he probably should have done better. But this time, in the second half, he was able to stop a Neuhaus effort. Jan Sommer managed to stop Thiago Tomas from quite close range. And then you're starting to feel that the game was kind of gathering momentum for a bit of a crescendo, a bit of a big finish, and there was probably going to be a goal either way, and whoever got it was probably going to win. And luckily enough, a bit of quality from Stuttgart was pushed it the home side's way. Really impressive play by Bjorn Sousa, showing his quality going forward, and he showed good strength to get to the byline, pulled it back to his partner, his pal Sasa Kalajdzic, that good old combo. When I saw the goal and the assist come up on my phone, I assumed, lofted cross and header, but obviously it was a low drive, great touch by Kalajdzic out of his feet and bent it in from close range past Sommer to make it 3-2 and complete the comeback. Extraordinarily important win, and it was nervy towards the end, I believe, of the game as well for Stuttgart. They were really kind of defending with their lives, but I think this win must give them so much hope and so much momentum going into some other big games for the rest of the season. They can see around them other teams are struggling and will be getting nervous and tetchy, seeing what the belief that now they may have, as I mentioned, that kind of front line of Kalajdzic, Tomas and Marmoush. If they can keep those 3 fit for the next 8 games, I think they've got a great chance of opening up teams with the likes of Sousa and co getting forward from the fullback positions, and that kind of pivot of Endo, the captain doing what he does best. A lot of it will depend on how well they defend as well in games to come, because they can't keep on conceding at least 2 goals every game, because recently they haven't been scoring goals, and that's why they've not won any games recently and been drawing games or losing leads. So, yeah, massive win. Put a great big smile on my face on Saturday. I was chuffed that they got the win. And then on the kind of other side of it, Gladbach, probably about as Gladbach sort of performance as you get. 2-0 up. You'd expect them to go see out the game, having played okay against Wolfsburg the week before. Player showing some really good form, but defensively, Gladbach obviously have not showed up recently, and that's why they're so inconsistent. I think the one thing that you would challenge Gladbach to is just go on a bit of a run and not just be so up and down every single week. It must be exhausting to be a fan of theirs. So I can't see that particularly ending anytime soon, their up and down nature. So it's just the privilege of being able to watch Gladbach and being entertained by them, I guess. But yeah, amazing game of football. I'm obviously absolutely chuffed that Stuttgart got the win and now give themselves a great chance of building on it, but they're still in serious trouble.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely entertaining, but they're actually only 4 points clear of the relegation zone at the minute as well. Obviously, the automatic relegation place, so it's not looking good for Gladbach at all. And as you say, like, they're entertaining to watch, but defensively, they're an absolute car crash, really. And they obviously, Benzabaini in this game was just not good enough at all, basically. And we've actually credited him quite a lot recently, haven't we? But he was just so poor in this match. And ultimately, it was his howler really that kind of got Stuttgart back in the game, and I think without that they probably have lost ultimately, let's be honest. But that's how it goes sometimes, like sometimes that happens in football, I guess. Okay, so yeah, let's move on to the talking point now. So Rory, do you want to introduce that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we probably kind of half gave it away a little bit earlier, so obviously it's the Bundesliga boxes talking point of the week, and it does indeed involve the team that are somewhat in free fall. Something that I described and written about a little bit as well recently. But the question we're kind of posing to ourselves this evening is: Will they survive relegation without making a change of head coach? So as we've already kind of described, they're now sitting in the relegation playoff spot in 16th place, obviously following that really good and important win for Augsburg on Friday night in Bielefeld. And so obviously Hertha haven't won a game in 2022, conceded a lot of goals. And even interestingly, this weekend, they managed to put a couple of experienced players together in the back line of Boyata and Kempf. And if you're going to, put a team together for the rest of the season, I would have said those two are your first choice centre backs, but they both looked car crashing, all over the place. Boyata in particular looked really rusty. So, that is not going well for them. So if we're talking about, do they need to make a change of head coach? So obviously the interim head coach right now is Tayfun Korkut, having taken over from Dardai, of course, earlier on the season. He's won 2 games out of his 13 so far in charge. Just in the 13 games that Korkut's been in charge of, they've averaged conceding over 2.6 goals a game. Been, brushed aside by most teams in recent times. Seem to have just thrown in the towel. Like a win percentage of 15.38 for Korkut. So, Mark, do you know much about Korkut's history? It looks like he's got previous with some Bundesliga teams, but they seem to be quite brief spells from what my research has told me. So, I mean, does it look like the writing's on the wall for him? And if so, who to her to even go for next?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was waiting all weekend for the news that he'd been sacked, to be honest with you, because I just think the recent performances have just been kind of unacceptable, really, haven't they? Let's be honest. They've just been so bad. I just think, like, obviously this defeat was just yet another shocking result, basically, in the line of shocking results. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, to see within some time this week that he is relieved of his duties. I know, obviously, he is only a makeshift anyway, like an interim manager, but that's just a situation that Hertha find themselves in at the minute, isn't it? I mean, yeah, a little bit more about Korkut. Yeah, he was actually born in Stuttgart in Germany, but like obviously he actually represented Turkey as an international. He was one of those in Germany. They have some like dual nationals. I think Özil and Gundogan as well are those kind of guys. They actually have German and Turkish citizenship. So Korkut is another of those guys. Yeah, he has actually managed quite a lot of clubs, but as you say, his record is far from exemplary. Do you know what I mean? Like his last job was actually at your boy Stuttgart, where he just played a few games actually in 2018. So it's a good few years ago. Like football changes quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, he didn't exactly cover himself in glory there, but some would say he did okay, but I think he was expected better, really, and he didn't do enough to get that job longer than just the 10 months that he ended up managing them. Before that, he even had Leverkusen, where he completely car-botched that, you know. I mean, he literally won 2 out of 12 games at Bayer Leverkusen, which is clearly not good enough for one of the top teams in Germany. Also messed up at Kaiserslautern, where he had a 6-month spell as well, where he only won 4 out of 18 games. Hanover, he also had only a 30% win record. It just doesn't read well, does it? But in this case, I'm not sure whether you can put all the blame on Korkut, though. You know, I just think the club is just in turmoil, and it's rotten to the core, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. Like a few weeks ago, you had like the owner that's pumped a lot of money in, saying that he regrets putting the money in because of the way that the obviously Freddie Bobic, the sporting director, had spent it. It's just, I can see what they're trying to do at Hertha. You know, they want to make a big capital club in Germany, and obviously they've got much more resources than Union Berlin to do. But at the moment, Union are winning the race, and they shouldn't be winning the race when it comes to the resources. The stadium, they've got the biggest stadium in Germany. You know, they've got an 85,000 capacity stadium in the Olympiastadion. I don't know. There's just something rotten at that club. And I just think, yeah, of course, Korkut's got to go now, basically. But who do they replace him with? For me, they've got to try and spend a bit of money and get like a real big name manager in, you know. Maybe it'll have to be someone like a Mourinho even. They'll have to, I don't think it will be Mourinho himself, but someone of that caliber. Do you know what I mean? And they've just got to pay him like 5-6 million euros a year to just go in and sort him out, basically, because this head coach structure isn't working for them. It's as simple as that. And they're going through 2-3 managers a season at the minute, and it's just not the way to build a club. And I'm very worried for them. They might even be playing Zweite Bundesliga next season, to be honest.
Yes, I mean, statistically, at both ends of the field, they are hurting themselves. So, you know, they conceded the second most amount of goals in the Bundesliga, obviously only behind Fürth. I think they've also, let's have a look, and then going forward at the other end of the pitch, they're not, there's not scored many goals, had the fewest amount of attempts that have hit the woodwork as well. And so, and then if you kind of look into those two things that statistically at both ends of the pitch, you are not performing, then you are not going to win games of football. On top of that, they also have the third lowest amount of possession in the Bundesliga with 44% of the ball. So it just goes to show that in all areas, they're drastically underperforming. So, obviously, the game of football is played on the pitch and is not won by statistics. But if you are in the bottom 3 of pretty much every negative statistic there is, then you will, as a result, be near the foot of the table, and that is what Hertha currently are. The signings to me are all very strange. I even questioned Jovetic, but he's done a decent job. But the injuries, obviously, for him, are obviously a bit of an issue. But he's got 6 goals for them. He's their top goal scorer. If you take those out of the team, then I dread to think where they'd be. Because he's been the one kind of shining light. He pushes them forward. Obviously an experienced player. So, yeah, maybe it's down to the more experienced players to rally the team. Like you said, like I mentioned earlier, Boyata, Kemp's a Bundesliga level sort of player. Some other players that have got to kind of step up as well. So we'll ultimately see where they end up towards the end of the season. But again, as we mentioned, I think they've got another 4 tough games in a row. Although they do play Gladbach as one of them. But again, because Gladbach lost, I think they're playing them again this weekend. So, the way that Gladbach work, they'll bounce back and play well and see Hertha as an opportunity to win. So, yeah, I mean, there's obviously got to be a change somewhere at the club. As you mentioned, Mark, from the top down to the bottom, it all seems very strange. Maybe the appointment of Korkut in the first place, with everything that we've said about his record. Why was he brought in? Obviously, we saw a bit of a bounce. Brilliant result for them against Dortmund as well in December, but everything else kind of points in the wrong direction for Korkut. So for me, it looks like they need to make a change now, or else I can't see them staying up at all. So if we're just to ask the question, I say they have to change the manager. I presume you're the same in the same camp as me there, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've got to, because the performances just haven't been good enough. If you look at the recent results, obviously 4-1 defeat at home to Frankfurt. Then before that, a 3-0 defeat to Freiburg, a 6-1 defeat against Leipzig, a 2-1 defeat against Greuther Fürth. That's just the last 4 games, you know what I mean? Then they got their only point since Christmas, actually, with the game before that, with a 1-1 draw against Bochum, which we were actually quite lucky to get a point in that one. And then before that, they got stuffed 4-1 by Bayern. It's just a complete car crash, isn't it? It really is. Like, they're getting battered week in, week out, literally, and it's just, they have to change the manager. They have to change the manager. But even then, I wouldn't say that it guarantees survival, depending on who they get in. I wouldn't be surprised if they even go back to Dardai, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
The way they are. I mean, obviously, he's a club legend, and he had a much better point record than what Korkut has had since he came in. So, maybe he wouldn't be the worst man to turn to.
Interesting stuff. Well, yeah, that pretty much brings a close to our talking point of the week. Hope everyone's enjoyed the show. And then, obviously, we're looking forward to Thursday's preview show. So, hope to see everyone then. But otherwise, over to you, Mark, to close up your first ever show done from England's lovely shores.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, if you enjoyed the show today, check out @OverTheBarFB and @OverTheBarExtra. Then obviously remember to check out our main site as well, otbfootball.net, which is like the centerpiece of our work. And then also remember to like, comment, and subscribe below. Yeah, so obviously that helps us with the algorithm, and it helps us to produce more and more stuff for you at this very, very busy stage of the season. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys, for joining us. As you say, my first and possibly only review show in the UK that I'll ever do. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, and I hope to see you all again later on in the week. See you then, guys.
Cheers all.